Hello, everybody. In this episode, I will be talking to Manoj Sebastian, who has about 27 years of work experience in the IT industry. He started off as a test engineer and has grown over the years in various roles and has also worked as an engineer, a software engineer, the SRE roles, and also as a director in this area. He's taken a break and doing a consultation now, and we will go ahead and learn from his rich experience in this episode. Stay tuned. Thank you. Hey Manoj, very good morning. How are you doing today?
Yeah. Hey Sharmila, very good morning. Happy Saturday. I'm doing great. Thanks for this invite to the chat with Sharmila.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Manoj. So, thank you for taking time on a Saturday morning and doing this. So we'll quickly get started with a quick introduction about yourself.
Sure. My name is Manoj. I've been in the industry for almost 26 plus years. Most of my time I spent in software development, SRE, and a lot of time I spent interacting with the customers. So right now I'm enjoying a career break, doing things which is not into a day-to-day corporate chores. So that is a quick introduction about me. Maybe you will get to know more about me as you go through the questions.
Perfect. Yeah, that was a very crisp one. Thank you for that. So we'll go and quickly get started, like you said. So I've kind of divided into various sections. The first one, with the vast experience you have, I'll start off with team building and scaling, right? So you've successfully built and scaled high-performing teams throughout your career, right, of the decades of experience that you have. So what are the key principles that you follow to ensure these teams not only meet the business goals, but also exceed them?
Yeah, I know. When you look back, sometimes you all feel that it's an amazing achievement by me building teams and successful ones in some of the great brands. But many times we don't really see what really goes behind, and some of the patterns emerges. And something which I also really reflected after a while to see what are my own common patterns which is working for me, and what are the anti-patterns I used to do, right? It's a constant endeavor to keep iterating you as a manager or a leader to improve upon your ways to build teams. I agree with you. That is the right question to start with, but I tell myself that one of the most time-consuming, challenging, draining task is to building teams. It's like building a family or growing kids. You go through various stages in that, right? Forming, norming, performing, and etc., etc. So over the years, if you ask me to share some of my learnings or best practices, I would call, is always hire the right people. I know it's a very cliche statement, but then I realized, or somewhere during my journey, I kind of fallen in love with this three Ps: the people, process, and products. Right? Products is very generic statement, but it's an outcome than just saying a physical product, right? So getting the right people and also making sure they're aligned to your larger business objectives. It's very critical to building successful teams. Just by having such smart people alone, you wouldn't be able to build a successful team. The alignment to the larger vision, mission, business goals of the organization is important. So one thing which I do usually is whenever I'm building a team, I try to spend a 30 minutes job call with every candidate from every level to address what we are trying to solve in a 30 minutes call. Even from a manager or a senior manager or a director or even to a entry-level engineer, I try to give this 30 minutes job call or job intro call where it is not just a free form talk. I usually keep a deck with me, which basically talk about what I am trying to achieve as a roadmap or a charter of the organization, and try to get a perspective from those candidates who are trying to apply for this job. It kind of gives two opportunities. It kind of validates my own assumptions. Sometimes I got very good inputs from some of the candidates who are talking to me, and also give a lot more genuine uh, feeling to the candidates who are trying to apply for a job or joining a team which is not existing or a new team. Um, that kind of a starting point, and obviously, like I talked about, the alignment is super critical. We may be having brilliant ideas, but then aligning to the business goals, which basically also defines how much budget you have to do these things, to what is the sustainability of this initiative, etc. Right. So the aligning is the, to me, the most important thing when you build a team. And of course, alignment is slightly a controversial terms, right? As an engineer or a leader, we all want our own uh, autonomy, uh, and which means I need my own space to operate. I don't want always to be aligned to somebody, or I don't want always to be uh, going to someone else for my decision making, right? But then manage balancing this alignment versus autonomy is always a tricky thing. But then the way we kind of do is also bring in the accountability part. Who is accountable for these autonomous decisions or decisions in the larger perspective, right? That kind of helps people to understand, hey, what decision I can make at my level, right? While I'm responsible for certain things, but when I take a decision, the accountability of the decision may not be just in my sphere of influence, right? Could be at a different level. And whatever decision.
Autonomous decisions. I think that kind of
Yeah, I think one more thing I kind of missed to talk about is,
yeah.
I know again a very cliche thing, but treating people right, right? It's an important aspect. We live in a world of a lot of chaos. We see a lot of stories with how people, felt this is my home for many years, and stories of, treating people right is not an option. It's an important trait of a leader, and in the current scheme of things, you have to be transparent in your actions and communication. There's something you can hide, right? We live in a very volatile world which is going through a lot of changes, but as a leader, being transparent about your actions and communications, right? Communication alone don't help, but actions are also should speak your words. So yeah.
Right, yeah. Thanks for summarizing that so well. Thank you. So moving to the second one, it's around with the amount of experience that you've had in this area of reliability engineering, right? Your expertise here is impressive. So how do you kind of approach the challenge of balancing innovation with the need of robust observability, resilience, and incident management?
It's a pretty wide question. I'll try to break it down as much as possible. See, innovation is a very open-ended statement, and usually we look at innovations to bring value to our end customers. But then we often forget that the first customer, especially when you work in a reliability engineering or SRE or in a platform engineering world, many times your customers are your own internal engineering organizations or your operations folks, right? A lot of time, innovations can be a bit of inward looking to get your house fixed. You yourself, struggling in toil, and you're trying to solve the toil of the world, kind of don't match. So I kind of keep a lot of innovation which is first focused on your internal improvements. But then when you do that, what happens is you end up having a lot of items. If you ever run a hackathon for your organization, I'm sure every company does that maybe once in a month or once in a quarter. You get tons of hackathon ideas,
Right.
and you see a lot of people putting a lot of time on these ideas. And I've seen a lot of time people spending time on improving their own day-to-day lives. It could be like, fixing some of the simple tools, which is taking time for them to do their day-to-day job, right? Uh, so when that happens, as a leaders, we need to keep having an eye, rather a macro view of things, and look at how can we make some of these problems irrelevant instead of solving them or fixing them. Making these problems irrelevant is the true innovation. I have seen people writing some of these orchestrators and schedulers to restart JVMs in their hackathons, which basically are a lingering problem. But then somebody is figuring out a new library or upgrading their Java stack, which basically removes that one memory leak, which has been causing challenge for a long time, or building using a new stack like a serverless, which removes a lot of underlying moving components for a particular stack, which basically saves them time. And or even simple things like moving from a traditional monitoring world to observability, or adopting AI for some of the tasks which when humans does it, it is not something we can do consistently and accurately. So some of these kind of eliminating a problem is my way of looking at innovation, and which basically helps you to focus on a very few things, but giving you the larger outcomes, not the output, right? Yeah, so this kind of fosters a kind of a disruptive mentality. When I say disruptive, is a true positive sense, to bring innovation. Otherwise, you can end up doing a lot of small tasks, and then we kind of waste the valuable engineering time, or resource time to chase a lot of few things, right? So in summary, again, you know uh, when a trivial many vital few kind of cliche is should be always remembered when you really chase innovations in organizations.
Okay, so basically it's around solving a problem, or rather eliminating it completely should be the approach, is what you're saying there.
Yeah, absolutely both. I think the real investment should be going there, because the time is limited, and finding, especially for a SRE or a reliability engineering kind of organization or a tech ops organization, finding time is the most difficult thing. They don't have time, because while we say 20% time goes into innovation, it may not be always true, because you need to have a state of mind to do innovation, right? After having a long-running incident and a tiring postmortem, and I get 2 days to do innovation, I'm tired. I probably rather go and take a break and recharge,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's basically providing that flexibility to people to find this time to do it. So don't really be hard bound by this 20% or 10% time. If you can identify those real bang for the buck kind of work, which is going to eliminate a problem, then invest into that. Right. As a leadership, we should have that view and help prioritize those kind of resource time. Instead of giving everyone 10%, find a pool of time for the whole team. That was another way to get the maximum bang for the buck.
Okay, that was a good one. I'm sure you're saying this out of experience. Thanks for that. Okay, moving on to the next question. It's around developer experience, right? So this is very, very critical to maintaining productivity. So what strategies have you employed to enhance the developer experience, particularly in the areas of dev tools and DevOps?
Yeah, so yeah, it's again a very interesting and pertinent question. Uh, you know, and there's a say that cobblers' children wear the not so great shoes, right? The cobbler makes the best of the shoes, but they don't get to wear the. That's what happens to most of the developers, uh, and they are the most critical resource. They also don't come cheap; they're expensive. But once they are onboarded, we don't really invest in providing them the right tools, or we try to bring very generic tools to solve many many challenges, right? Uh, and one of the approach I have uh, taken is to create that connect with the developers, understand the kind of problems they are facing a day-to-day basis. And often it sounds very lame. Yeah, the purpose of hiring a developer is most of the time by business units are to solve certain business problems, but they end up doing a lot of toil, maybe it upgrading to a certain version or migrating to Kubernetes or some of these kind of tasks, or even taking on calls or incident management and so on and so forth.
Right.
So unknowingly, many engineering teams becomes caught in this vicious circle of spending a lot of time on everything other than their core responsibility. So one of the approach which I usually take when solving or other addressing this developer experience or developer productivity or developer uh, uh, you know uh, developer life in that itself is uh, try to remove as much as complexity and context of the things which they are not supposed to do from the equation. I'm sure if you look at many of the teams in the current days, if you ask them, hey, what have you done in the last quarter? They say, hey, we migrated to Kubernetes, or we are
Right.
adopting this technology, we are upgrading this, we have tech debts, and so on and so forth,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, the whole idea is to make the change and abstract a lot of these context and complexities out of their equation. And I think now with AI and a lot of platform engineering approaches are really coming in handy there. So uh, as a reliability and productivity leader, my key focus is always on to remove that context and complexity from their day-to-day life and make them focus on the number of business functions they can write. But it is not easy because uh, many times people don't even know what they're going through. And that's why maybe I think somewhere we'll talk about this incident management and the health of your services comes, a big and important factor, where a data-driven approach to know what is going on, what you're doing, what is the state of operation excellence, everything comes into play. In some of my previous experiences, we have collected data from incident management for BUs and their services, and we kind of get attributed that to the amount of time they're spending, which is close to the 40 to 50% of the time they are wasting on repeated tasks and even alerts, right?
Right.
The absolute time they spend on looking at them. Not even factoring that context switches which happens to them when these events occur. Uh, and having this data collected over a period of time and sharing it with them and running with them as a program really make them aware of what is the kind of time opportunity they lost because of this, is kind of help them to accept some of the strategies which basically been lingering around you know using a paved path versus reinventing the wheel every time, right? So this is some of the approaches to make the teams understand why what is the importance of following some of the uh, paved paths where it is absolutely useful and probably go off the path when something is really needed. Uh, so it's a long discussion, but I think many times there is a gap exists between these productivity teams building tools versus the developers who are actually uh, using them.
Right.
So one of the approach we do is sometimes go spend time with them. Right, we call it sharing the pain. Sometimes some of our engineers who go work with the teams and take a few sprint tasks and go through the whole cycle of developing and validating and then delivering and managing the piece of software on in production, which kind of give them a lot of perspective in which, okay, why some of these obvious things which we think they should be doing are not being done. That basically the empathy part of these things, right, which kind of helps the developer productivity teams to make the solutions more focused and purpose built in some cases, right? Instead of going very generic to solve everything. Often people forget that you need to make a lot of purpose built solutions too. Uh, right. So platforms usually get into the trap of building everything very generic, and which basically is a lot of work with the uh, end user to work on. Sometimes there should be a combination of both. So empathy, customers in a centric. So these are the kind of gaps which exist between these teams. And I think the way most nowadays I see a lot of talk around the platform engineering,
Right.
where these teams are looking at taking it as a typical product development life cycle for internal tools too, and having a lot more interactions through a product manager, etc. Um, which is in the right direction, I would say, and measure them using some of these metrics in terms of the amount of time they lost and amount of time they gained, I would say, in this new way of doing things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you really called out how well they get kind of juggled in between solving incidents and looking at alerts, and they don't even realize the time lost there and kind of deviates from what they originally expected out of their role, right? So, and the emphasis on, share the pain, because we always feel, oh, the developer just develops and forgets it, and there is no further assistance. But probably once you get into their shoes, I think then you get to know why they behave the way they behave and the response that we get from them, right? So I believe these are things. These are some of the things that's worked where that you have implemented where this has worked, right? And this kind of gave a new perspective, or the way of working has changed. Am I getting that right?
That's correct. That's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. So in all these are very well documented information available on the web,
Yeah.
right? Anyone who want to know these things, it is well documented elsewhere. But uh, in a way, if you want to implement these best practices, it's not possible, right? So I know many companies have failed with
Right.
these kind of implementation. So the reason why it failed also because of a lack of this empathy, right? And also not able to share the pain and just standing as a advisory board or a consultant who's not really having a skin in the game. Right. So a lot of my experience come from the failures which I have experienced in the past. So
Okay, that's a good one. That, it comes because of failures. Got it. Thanks, Manoj, for that. Okay, moving on to the next one. You also spoke about customer success a couple of times in the previous responses, right? So based on that, so it is the most ultimate measure of a product's impact on how your company will grow. So how do you kind of integrate that customer feedback into the engineering processes to ensure the solutions that you build kind of meets their needs and you continue to grow in the market?
yeah, this is one thing again I learned over the course of my career. Some of the companies I worked, they always started off with the success matrices or KPIs when we start off with a new product. So we always look at the output metrics and the quality matrices, or look at what are the customer matrices. When you say success metrics, output matrices is usually coming from the end user and end customer, right? So and with that we start off with an intent to succeed with the customers, and then comes to the harder part of it. How do we make the success happen? Just by having an output metric or having the right process to build a software alone is not enough to have the success with the customers. Uh, I know, we have seen enough and more articles and videos and talk shows which talks about customer usually look for a solution and we are selling a product, right? And kind of the situation. So it is important to continue to talk with your customers constantly. It starts with collecting requirements. And as a engineering leader, a lot of my time is spent in talking to my customers. It is formally through our own reach out, and also participating in some of the common forums, architectural huddles, leadership reviews of products. So there are a lot of these inputs and feedbacks keep constantly flowing in, and collecting them and keep on looking at what we can do to improve the pain points is something should be running in the DNA of a leader, and something which I started doing it maybe later in my career when I worked in some of the great companies.
Okay.
Uh, and then it's a cycle. It's not a one-time activity. So you keep on doing these activities, and it involves collecting feedbacks and then giving them early previews on what is going on. Have a brown bag sessions where we go deep dive into the new initiatives which we are taking. And most of the time, especially when you are working in this reliability and productivity space, and your customers are nothing but good developers, you get a lot of early feedbacks, and to see if that is really solving the problem, or is a better way for solving it, or another impact. So in a way, when you build this internal productivity tools, you get a lot of valuable input if you really have that customer centric approach. And and then as and when you develop and releases your features, the cycle constantly continues, and you have early adopters, and they really champion the product. They keep talking about it. You don't really have to do anything after that. But if you don't do that and you just take the product and say, hey, force it on, this is the way to do it, and you please use it, right? You get a lot of resistance. And I agree that on the other side, there are always this highly demanding customers, especially in internal teams. There'll be very strong opinions this way or that way. And I think some of your organizational principles which you kind of use to navigate through those situations. That's why I talked about this alignment as a first principle, that there should be an alignment on what we are trying to achieve than just going and doing random things. So tying all these things together, we can have an effective, customer-centric approach where we keep everyone together on the larger business objectives than going and chasing some of the shiny balls, which is a very common thing. Oh, this is a new technology coming, I want to use that, versus let's have something which is more effective for a larger group. And at the end of the day, many times you don't have we won't be end up agreeing to everything what a customer asks. That also is fine. You can't make everyone happy, but I think that also can be very transparent to the customer that this is not possible for whatever reason, unless you have a different justification. So being transparent to the customer in terms of what you are not doing or why you are not doing is also helps to keep their trust, so that they know that this team is something I can trust, and I can go back when I have a better case to get some of these things done. So customer success in a internal tools team, it's a bit tricky, but it is very much possible, right?
Okay. I think you kind of really call out very well that don't always keep chasing a shiny ball. You concentrate on what you can deliver and get better at that, right? And transparency is the key as well. Yeah. That I think of a very unique and key call outs. Of course, alignment, like what you already mentioned. Thanks for that. So the next one is about resilience engineering, right? So it's very crucial in today's fast-paced tech environment. So can you share an example of how you kind of implemented this resilience engineering practices to prevent or mitigate major incidents? We'll follow up with that with an incident management question.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing because some of my attempts to implement a resilience experiment for the organization always resulted in this roadblock saying, hey, how do you measure the success of this initiative, right? So to me, the success of a good resilience practice in organization is no incidents, right? But that is not possible. And you may be preventing many, but the ones which you prevented, you can't measure them.
Good.
So, while everyone talks a lot about this resilience experiments or the chaos experiments, you keep talking about it. It's not that straightforward. So I'll probably touch upon one of my experience. This is one of the company which I worked. It was a SaaS-based company. They had a huge outages due to some process and practices in and there were huge backlash from customers. And we gone through again. I'm a big fan of incident management, incident data, and the patterns really revealed that these are the incidents. Who's impacting party, who is the impacted party, what was the cause, what are the remedies, and all that. Then we also went on to another dimension to these incidents and try to categorize them. What could have prevented this incident from happening, or rather, what action could have unearthed this particular behavior if you had done in the past. So some of them would be adding more unit tests and design reviews and so on. But there's one glaring pattern was that not done enough failure mode analysis of these services.
Okay.
Okay, and that basically became our justification to go on to um, push for a resilience experiment across the company.
Okay.
And then we run into multiple issues because the company had a combination of monoliths and microservices architecture there. And everyone agreed that we should do resilience experiments frequently, but then the kind of complexity and context required to run these experiments were huge, and the company was spending like 1 week to run one experiment. Which basically means you need to have an army of people, not just one person. The whole team sits around and they manage this chaos experiments. So we took on this approach of as a SRE organization, we took this approach of remove this context and complexity. When I talk about this context and complexity, one of my classic examples is this one, removing the context and complexity of this chaos testing from the engineers. Right. When you do it in production, it's not easy, and it can actually cause a huge outages in the process. So there should be a lot of time they spend on understanding how to set up this test. What are the kind of guardrails they need to put? Which are the teams they need to inform, and what do you do in case of an alert triggers? How do we gracefully how do we fail back immediately in case the test is actually go wrong? So a lot of things need to be taken care even before you start the chaos experiment or your resilience experiment. So this is what we try to totally abstract from the developer. So we built this entire framework as a service, and it was easily pluggable into the service from a service registry.
Okay.
And get it to turn on and off. And we also give them a 6 or I think we gave some 5 resilience experiment templates which automatically configure into their services based on the service definitions, etc.
Wow.
And then all they have to do is find a time and then just say
Plug and play.
run this particular experiment, and also say that, hey, I want to fail back if I see the error rates increase by say X percentage. So that basically, and that also gave them a lever to, okay, I want to run this first in my pre-prod, and then I want to run this in production. So we all of a sudden we onboarded some 100 plus services again in 1 week. And we also reduced the time of running these experiments in running into weeks with an army of people to check, like 1 hour was all we needed to run this experiment, and we could do more frequent. And as one of the quality metrics, rather I would say the input metrics, is we could see that with the number of issues we find during the tests, and I won't call it a test, but it's more of an experiment, because a lot of unknowns comes out only when you do an experiment test, which we know what is expected output. Obviously, there is some part is a test, but some part is an experiment. We really look for the unknowns. So it really worked well. But then unfortunately, sometimes the problem is people see, hey, what is the larger, should we stop running my resilience experiments once I have no issues to report from the service? And the answer is very simple. Whenever you make a change, you need to run it. just like you do your unit testing, just like you do your performance testing, just like you do your security testing, right? These are something, okay, which is part of your non-functional regression test suite, where you run all of them at certain intervals or based on certain triggers, right? And one of the reason why I find people fail in resilience experiments is because they don't do a proper FMEA kind of an approach, right? FMEA is a very classic word, right? Failure mode and effects and actions. So that's something which we don't do, right? And many times I've seen people's expectation is that everything should be active types, right?
Yeah.
This again, I go back to this the first principles of what is your alignment, what is the
Alignment.
business goal? Do you need all services to be active? Not at all, right?
Right.
Sometimes your resilience means you gracefully degrade, and customer know that, okay, this is down for the next 30 minutes. I'll back up and I have no issues with that.
Correct.
So that level of clarity is usually lacking, and people.
Okay. Uh, Thanks, Manoj, for that. I think the one like what you mentioned, if there are no incidents, there's no measurement, but I think you can still call out that we are 100% available. Those metrics will still count when there are no incidents. And I think the emphasis that you laid on about, remove the context and complexity from chaos engineering. I think that was very, very key. I believe that's the approach everybody needs to take. But I like what you have been talking over the various topics about. It kind of an engineer is expected to do multiple roles, so that's something that needs to be removed, and they are accountable only for what is their responsibility. So, thanks for that. And like I mentioned, in continuation to the previous question, it's about incident management now. So based on the experience that you have, and since you also mentioned incident management is your core area, what are some of the best practices for effective incident management, and how do you ensure your teams are prepared to handle unexpected challenges?
Yeah, incident management is a vast subject, and it is not just a incident manager's responsibility alone. The whole company comes together, like you say that African proverb, right? The whole I need a whole village raise a kid, like, so you need a whole organization to fix an incident sometimes. So
Right.
everyone, including the CEO, must be aware of the incident management process. There are very few companies who do that, but there are companies I know they have escalation policies go all the way up to the CEO. And if it is not resolved in a certain time, the CEO gets an alert. Uh, I think that level of the culturally making incident management into the DNA is very important. Um, and it starts with a simple training. Many organizations do that for new joinees, and also refresher training to different people. But I think to me, an incident management training for all the new joinees, whether they are senior, they're junior, whatever level they are, what is the organization's incident management philosophy and process is something we should get as like a day one training, just like you do training on the safety and security of the organization, uh, which broadly, as you know, covers about uh, the objectives, the roles, responsibilities, do's and don'ts, and all that, right? I think, and it's a whole a lot of a subject in itself, but for the interest of time and something I like to call out of one thing in incident management.
Uh-huh.
Um, Incident typically a chaotic situation, and especially high-profile incidents during a critical event in the organization, like a
Right.
sale event or something. When something goes wrong, you have a lot of eyeballs on you to get things fixed. So you really have to have that differentiation between uh, who is doing what, and the roles and responsibilities, right? So I touch upon two roles, which is basically to me very close to my heart, is the incident commander and the incident manager. Often we mix them up and understand them at the same role, but to me, these two roles should really work in tandem, especially larger organizations when there are critical incidents running affecting multiple stream of products or services. Uh, which basically means that the incident commander is the one who's going to be in the middle of the incident and steering it through.
Right.
And they're very much focused on what is going on, how to fix the incident. When I say fix the incident, it is again stop the bleed, right? You're not really trying to fix the problem. You're basically trying to curtail the impact of the incident to the customers and recover, restore, uh, gracefully degrade whatever that plan is. Just get that done, right? That is the responsibility of the incident commander, and the incident manager is more of again another layer, safeguarding everything which is going right, intervening when things are not going the right direction, helping the incident commander with the communication, which is basically going to the leadership, etc. So a good incident management process will have these kind of roles well defined, and they work in tandem, so that the actual incident get addressed properly, and also a lot of this stakeholder communication, etc., is happening on time. And it is not easy to communicate a bad news to a very heavy people in the organization, right? So it's a very critical role, and there should be an appreciation for that. Usually, people don't appreciate this incident outages much as you appreciate some of the new product releases. But then there should be a system in the organizations to appreciate these instances where a engineer, and this incident commander may not be an incident management team member. It could be an architect, could be a
Right.
staff engineer, or could be an engineer. So I have seen organizations where we used to look at how well a particular engineer managed an incident as part of their promotion discussion, and they should get rewarded for handling an incident, and how they handled it well, right? That used to be part of their promotion. And somebody who don't did not do that in the entire span their career, probably it's become a negative thing for them. If you are playing too safe kind of an approach, right? If you're a good engineer, you probably made some mistakes, or you fix something at a very critical time. Yeah,
Right.
that is that's one thing I want to add to incident management, and something which we encourage people to do. If you're not doing incident command at some point of time in your career, then you're not growing enough.
Okay, I think that's definitely a key call out that anybody could do the incident commander role and not like a specific team. I think that emphasis was clear, right? Thanks for that. I know this is such a vast subject and we can talk about this itself for an hour or so, but in the interest of time, keep it at that. Talking about AI and the impact, right? So the AI wave and its impact, what it could have on the DevOps and the technicians going forward in the future. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think there's going to be profound impact, and already we've been witnessing. And I see when I talk to various uh, people, my ex-colleagues, team members, I see a variety of initiatives being done. And the most interesting part is it is now moving from just productivity gains to maybe getting into a AI native world, right? So I think another 2-3 months we'll be kind of reaching 2 years of Chat GPT, right? I think
Sure.
2022 is when we all heard about Chat GPT, and a lot of ideas were floating around. So what I look at it two an angle, from an AI and impact on the DevOps and SRE, etc. Obviously, I think there is enough and more tools have come in the market, from copilots to ChatGPT itself, to creating boilerplate code, and even Amazon's Q, and there are many tools available to improve the productivity, right? And when you improve the productivity of developers, it's also not just productivity; it's also reduce the human error touch points, which reduces a lot of quality issues, which otherwise would have been caused inadvertently by the developers by typos, as simple as typos, etc.
Mhm.
But that kind of throws up a new problem to the post production. You are going to see a lot more high velocity in your creation space. You end up creating a lot more code than, in fact, quality code, right?
Yeah.
And uh, and they're fairly functionally okay, because you have your AI taking care of your unit testing. It is looking at all the static analysis of your code base, pull requests being reviewed for the semantics, the structure, and all that standards. So you're getting pretty solid code out here that using AI. But then what is still not really thought through is the non-functional attributes of your uh, products as it goes into production, right? How to operate them.
Mhm.
So AI has an equal play even the post production setups too. Just imagine, okay, an alert coming with a lot more contextual details about why something is gone wrong, right?
Right.
We try to solve that using this observability keyword a while ago, but
Yeah.
now it is not just like a observability tool. We call about, okay, I can see my metrics, traces, and logs in one place, and then I can easily find out what is going wrong. And we are departing from there and saying, hey, I'm getting an alert which basically says this service, having this error, and there was a spike from the last 5 hours, and
Mhm.
you probably had a change in the upstream services at that point of time, which basically caused a spike in traffic to your service, which also kind of not honoring your contract. So there could be a lot of other this context information coming to you in an alert, instead of you go through a lot of dashboards and
Right.
figuring it out, right? So the user interface, one of the biggest impact of AI will be change in the user experience or the UX which you're going to interact with. Yeah, as you know, now voice has become the most powerful UX. Right? We all were used to using keyboards and mouse to interact with systems. Now, voice has become the most powerful, UX to interact with systems. So this kind of innovation will happen, and that's where I would see SREs and the platform engineers who are working in observability part really focus on getting to that state. But then it's not very easy because many organizations haven't really spent enough energy to uh, get their ops data right. So we have all the data models for business and analytics, etc., but we don't really have that kind of proper relationships. Data model for ops itself is well defined, from your service registry to catalogs to the dependency matrix to the key matrices each services really look up to the logging format to a lot of these inconsistencies exist in many of the legacy stacks. I think as in now again AI is also now helping teams to upgrade this uh, their source code to the latest frameworks or latest version of Java, for example. So this upgrade is going to soon happen, and I think we'll get a lot more standardization in the ops data, which can be leveraged by your AI tools to give more predictable insights into what's going wrong. And I think that will be the true AI ops, where an incident manager, incident on-call engineer get an alert, and they don't have to go out of the alert email or alert Slack channel to know what to be
Yeah.
done to fix the issue, right? And if not, that can even do auto remediation by itself at the next level, right? So
Yeah.
it eliminates a lot of these unwanted dashboards. And I've seen working on some of this dashboard fatigue with the teams, because there are so many dashboards and we don't know which one to look at, right? And that is going to be to me, the biggest impact of AI it is immediate impact to many of these DevOps and SRE teams. Obviously, there'll be another set of challenges coming. Now, we're talking about these are the softwares built by humans now trying to become more efficient by using AI. But now there are going to be another set of software coming in. They're mostly AI native.
Yeah, built, yeah.
Right, and then it is not going to be humanly possible to think through all those possibilities and all those
Right.
issues, which again humanly. So we'll be increasingly relying on tools to even debug and monitor the systems, which is again we'll have AI capabilities to monitor AI native applications. Then only we know the surface of it, because at some point of time there will be a lot more code which is not really understood well by the
Humans.
developer,
Literally.
right? But it is working well, right? So you've
Yeah.
been more of an English, prompting person for a particular functionality, and I don't think a developer is going to read every single line. If it's working fine, it is meeting all the test requirements. So when it comes to an issue in production, whatever you do with AI, we all know that anything which is supposed to fail will fail, at the time when it is the most unexpected, the Murphy's law. And that point of time, I think you will still need humans to manage some of these AI capabilities to get the right outcomes. So that that marriage of tools and AI and AI native applications is going to be the next set of challenge. But I think okay, it's going to be very, very interesting in a situation ahead of us, and the roles of us will change. But I think one thing will remain constant is going to be the not these stacks and technologies probably may not be so required, but then some of these soft skills like your resilience, your empathy, your learning agility, your adaptability, all these are going to really stand out. And if you are a resource of this generation, you probably can stop worrying about okay, learning that technology or this technology, but ask this question: Am I resilient? Am I really showing the right learning agility? Do I have the empathy to sit in the other person's shoe and look at what the need they have, right? Then we can have the right solution. So that is how I summarize this question.
Okay, perfect. I think that was so well explained, Manoj. I think especially like what you said, though AI has that capability right now, the one that you said, right? What about the non-functional attributes? And we do not have enough data, ops data to kind of, utilize AI completely at this point in time. Maybe in future that's all sorted with everything going AI, but at this point, I think the way you called out, right, the marriage of tools and AI is key. So yeah, thanks for that explanation, right? And last but not the least, on your career growth. So reflecting on your career journey, what key moments or decisions have been pivotal in shaping your leadership style and approach to engineering management?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one to really answer. But when you look back so many years, probably I didn't really realize that point of time. It's all you kind of connecting the dots by looking backwards.
Right.
Uh, but I think one thing I was never just like any other young student out of college, I want to become a software developer, and I want to be the best C++ coder, and that used to be my dream. But then in my first job, I realized my strengths are not really working on a solution for so long, but my strength is actually solving problems. So the final difference between solving problems versus making solutions are two different things, right? I could solve multiple problems, but I can't really sit on to one solution for long, which something I realized. I think that helped me. And some of the turning point in my career was probably trying to do the things which others are not really keen on picking up. Right now, maybe take the road less traveled kind of thing. So I started my career as a test engineer in my first job, and we're all doing functional tests. So you have this test cases: input A, you get output C, kind of test. It was to me, it was very monotonous. It was boring. However, a lot of focus of the company was focused on that. And one day I remember my manager asked all of us in the team meeting that, hey, we need someone to test the setup of this product. And setting up, in what big deal, right? You just click next, and finish install. We were into Windows world, but back then. Then no one raised a hand. Then I raised my hand and said, hey, I'll do that. So as I got into that particular job, I realized that it also involves a lot of non-functional attributes need to be tested, like different versions of operating systems, different type of hardware, different type of dependencies, which includes a different type of network setups, which those days we had Windows network to novel network to Sun Solaris to no domains too. So a lot of those combinations. So basically gave me an opportunity to learn a lot about systems, networks. I ended up setting up a test lab, which started with a my own network, my own ISP connection, my own DNS, my own mail server. So it gave me from a test engineer's career to knowing a lot about these IT systems, or what you call now, which kind of gave me, if I look back, that kind of was my first step into moving into a role like SRE, which I kind of it kind of became my full-time job these days,
Right.
right? So always trying to have the flexibility to try um, you know different things early in the career, and figure out like, what really interesting you, right? Never shy away from doing that. And also that kind of gave me that initial confidence that there's a value in learning what is happening on the other side of the world. And because I had this experience when we launched the product, uh, one of the very few engineers in the team who could understand the language of an IT manager, who used to really install our product in their server room, was me. So I used to be a person who travel with to the customers and implement the product with the respective IT teams. So that gave me a cross disciplinary knowledge, and gave more empathy towards customers. So yeah, so I think if I look back, that cross disciplinary knowledge, problem solving from multiple perspectives, kind of really helped me to develop more empathy towards um, situations which I end up. And you don't solve a problem only from your perspective, right? It's has to be solved from multiple perspectives. And that also helped me to get this learning agility early in my career to adapt to situations. So that's one thing I can uh, vividly remember as, or rather I recognize myself as one of the things I did to shape my career.
Okay, I think that was a lovely summary of your experience, right? Especially about, I think it all started off by raising your hand for that one opportunity which a manager asked way early in your career, and
Yeah.
go and
Yeah,
explore
but
it.
yeah, obviously, then once you do that, I think people notices you,
Ag-
right? So you automatically get visibility with your leaders, and then they you get a that advantage that really helped me. So I had visibility all the way to the CEO. I had access to the CEOs, get demo preparation for them and all that. So it kind of gave me that thing, right? But then I think the next important moment I would say is that after 7 or 8 years into my career, I was really happy with my, but that as an individual contributor, I could solve every problem with the product and all that. And there's a time when I was asked to do a different task by the CEO, that was setting up a product support organization in from India for the company.
Okay.
And I was all prepared to go there as a technical lead. But then I talked to one of my close friend, who's also one of my very influential person in my life that point of time. He told me to told me about the becoming a manager who's really accountable for the team. And and that might be helping you to solve the problem better.
Right.
So I think I took his advice and decided to join the team as a manager and take
Okay.
accountability of the team, and not the accountability of the issues which happens generally. And
Okay.
that was a biggest learning that helped me to transition from a engineering techie to an engineering leader,
Okay.
where I could empower teams to deliver at scale and become a multiplier than a individual contributor who's just was flipping between issues to customers to solutions to whatever. So yes, I think that was another key turning point in my career, and I never lost some of these flexibility. Even
Uh-huh.
when I joined Yahoo, I remember my interview with Yahoo's India head, and I was interviewed for a quality engineering job, and then he asked me to look at service engineering, and I had the flexibility to kind of pick between one of them, and then it kind of helped me to shape my thing. So that learning agility and flexibility in uh, and basically helped me to attain a lot of cross disciplinary knowledge. So yeah, I can always go back to that in many examples in my career.
Okay, awesome. I think learning agility and flexibility is basically the key, right?
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
I think one more thing I should talk. I think this is something okay people don't talk, right? I think it's also reflecting and recharge, right? It's also important to take a break, and recharge. So when I took this break recently, I could do a lot of things which I could never do, and it really brought a lot of peace. It helped me to get my thoughts together. I could become more sharper and more peaceful and more healthy, and I don't know what I call it, right? So it is important to get serviced, right? We as human beings don't service ourselves. We service our car, our mixie, our TV, our washing machine, everything else we service, but we don't service or recharge ourselves, and we are the most important machine for us.
Okay, that was a wonderful analogy to service yourself while you service everything else. Good one to kind of remember that. Thanks. Thanks. I think that's definitely one of the key inputs. Cool. Thanks. Thanks, Manoj. Okay, Manoj, I think thank you so much for those explanations around all the questions that I had. Now we have something called as a rapid fire round. Okay, the answer is supposed to be like a one word or a one statement for these questions. Can we go ahead and get started with that?
Sure, let me see.
Sure, I'm sure you'll do great. Right. So what is one word to describe your leadership style?
I think it's the people first.
Great. Awesome. What's your favorite aspect of your job?
My customers and the impact to them.
Awesome. What is your top networking tip?
Um, be Yeah, always offer help. So when you get a chance to help somebody,
Go ahead.
do it.
Okay. Wonderful. Great. What is the best career advice you've ever received?
Huh. I think yeah, I think
Huh?
that's a bit different. I have to think, but yeah, definitely. Once one of my colleague told me to stop the crazy timings you have. I used to work crazy, but he told me to stop and reflect and uh, get out of that rut. I think that was one of the great tip I got, and I
And
keep looking at that every now and then. And it's a long answer to a short question, but take a pause,
think about
look at it and review, and for
get back.
yeah, stop, watch forward, right? Kind of a feedback I received once. Yeah.
Okay. And I believe you took that and implemented it as well, right? Great. Okay. What is your favorite quote that inspires you if you have one?
Yes, I have one. I think I'm a big. I have two quotes for you actually.
Sure.
The number one is breakthroughs never happened when you're in a comfort zone. Uh,
Okay. Mhm.
and the second one is there is nothing called fear. There's only lack of exposure.
Awesome. Okay. Wonderful.
The second one I think is by Helen Keller. It's one of my favorite.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's lovely. Uh, what is your favorite way to unwind after a long day of work?
Oh yeah, I love to watch television,
Oh,
especially yeah, I love to watch television. Anything which is uh, you know documentaries to sports to whatever.
yeah.
I get a lot of inspiration from the people who succeed in or fail in their what they do and the learnings from them. So I keep watching a lot of content. And outside, I do a I also I love doing a lot of outdoor activities. So yeah.
Nice. Nice. I think that kind of says it all. Okay. One last thing that you would have to tell for people who would want to succeed in their career.
Nothing can replace your hard work.
Great. Wonderful. I think that was it, Manoj. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you on the talk. And I think I have my own learnings from our conversation today. Again, thank you so much for taking time, especially on a Saturday morning and doing this. And I hope we get to talk soon again.
Yeah, thank you, Shamal. I think it's nice to reconnect with you after a long time, and thanks again for giving this time to talk. I think one of these all these interviews really helps to
Yeah,
share and to get some new perspectives. So thanks again. Thanks for your time.
sure. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation with Manoj. Here are some of the key takeaways from our conversation. Alignment is key. Innovation needs to eliminate problems. Don't always chase a shiny ball. Remove context and complexity from chaos engineering. Incident management needs to be part of your DNA. You need to ensure that everybody, irrespective of whatever role they are, they need to be given this training. And learning agility and flexibility. You also definitely need to have soft skills such as empathy. And most importantly, hard work is the key to success. Hope you do implement some of these in your career and it helps you to grow up the ladder. See you soon in the next episode. Thank you.